So the way the natural selection happens is through DNA. We actually didn't know. We knew that we all have genetics. We knew that we get half from the mom, half from our dad, from Gregor Mendel, but we didn't know exactly how this happened. So in 1953, the two scientists, James Watson and Francis Crick, actually did learn about what is actually this genetics has. And the genetics have DNA, which are chemical building blocks of genes. And even though we tend to put humans on a very high scale compared with any other species, we have 2,500 genes, only 6,000 more than a worm. Fun fact. So the question is, when we actually learned 1953 how to use the genetics and what the DNA is and how the DNA looks, that means we were able right now to reproduce some of this. We were able to do cloning. So this is a debatable thing when it comes to cloning. It still is. We start one of the first successful clonings were the goat Dolly, the sheep goat Dolly. Sorry, she was not a goat; she was a sheep. 1997. These are actually also two monkeys. One successful cloning were the two monkeys. I'm interested to know if you know any other cases, or if you know if the UIE we had any cases of cloning. And I'm gonna keep these conversations for our talk after the lecture is done. Well, obviously, genetic engineering is still a question. Is it ethical or not? And some of the arguments will be that we act as gods, that we shouldn't do that. We act as God doing that. And it's not up to us as humans to create that. So while some of the scientists argue, well, if God gave me this mind, I'm just using it in the purpose to help other humans. We also are able to clone certain body parts. So if you consider people coming back from a war or losing an arm for accident reasons or being born without an arm or a leg, the cloning is a really, really good way to help these people. So we're going to have a conversation about the genetic engineering. I want to see where you stand with this. So let me see if I can move. No, I cannot move because I think you don't see a little bit of So, of course, this is not just a tough topic here in the Middle East, but it's a tough topic also in the West. The Western Europe is considered to be the part of the world where they are less religious than any other industrial world. Funny enough, United States is one of the most religious industrial country in the world. So I'm only talking about the industrialized countries, not about all the countries. So the biggest issue with the human evolution is how we might actually go against the scientific creationism, meaning that the belief that all present life forms were spontaneously created by one supernatural power, by one, if you want to call it God. So in 1925, I'm not sure if you can see the year, but in 1925, a Tennessee biology teacher was actually put in prison because of exactly the same things that I shared with you right now about the human evolution, about Charles Darwin. Obviously, it was 1925. They didn't know about the DNA or genetic engineering. But he did talk about progressive change and natural selection. So the parents considered this was absolutely unacceptable for children to learn this. It was a high school biology teacher. In 1985, 60 years after this Tennessee teacher was put in prison, in California, a law passed when they said no biology textbook should be without this human origins, human evolution theory. Everybody should learn about it. This is not a theory to convert you or to change your mind. This is just a theory that you should know about what's happening in the world. In 2000, 20 years ago, funny thing, you can see different perspectives when we talk about the same country. In Kansas, when the elections happen at the state level, the people who are elected, they said the human evolution should not be taught in schools in the biology text. It should not be in the biology textbooks. So we have an entire chapters on politics and government, and we see how important it is how the government acts. Yeah, based on what we learn in school and what's in our textbooks and what our teachers can actually share with us. And this was just a fun survey that I actually added here. This is only a survey done in the United States. I would have loved to find one done maybe in the UAE or Middle Eastern region. If you have one, please share it with us. Social biology, again, if you remember the interdisciplinary, these are two disciplines coming together, sociology and biology. If you remember my three circles from the first class of when I put the three main sciences, like natural science, social science, and humanities, biology is considered sometimes a natural science and sometimes a social science, and sociology is considered a social science. So these two are, social biology might be in the middle, might be in that circle between natural and social science. So social biology argues that our genetic materials, the thing that we get from our mother, father, our grandparents, is what influence our behavior. So whatever we act, who we are, it's based on our parents. It's nothing we can do about it. If our parents were racist, they didn't like a certain tribe or they didn't like certain nationality, that means we just inherit that and it's in our genetic material. This was a theory done by Wilson, a sociologist, and he was not very popular because of his theory, though a lot of people did like what he said, and it was justifying racism, and they were like, oh, that's why I'm racist, like social biology, it's just my genetics. Yes, certain minorities should be put in prison. They're just lazy and criminals because they're coming from that certain race. It's just they inherit that from their parents. And we're also going to have a conversation about social biology. I want to see what do you think about it. And a new field in psychology, evolutionary social psychology, also came one of the newest subfields of psychology, where they talk about the biological and genetical factor playing a role in explaining behavior besides other factors. So I'm not sure if you have any psychology majors here. I know we only have like 21 in the. So our current view of how much the genetics influence who we are, it's about a third of who we are. So 60% of who we are is mostly our environment, regardless of who our parents were. This might change if you two babies are born, let's say twins are born, and then one is adopted by this family and one by this family. Their genetics will only make up about 30 to 40% of who they are. 60% will be their new environment. Let's say it might not even be born, might not be even raised by their parents. So certain diseases we are more likely to get it, like heart disease, diabetics, from our parents. We are more likely to get if our parents are angry, or are more likely to get angry, that we probably might get that from our parents. However, all of these things can, even some of these things or a lot of these things, can also be changed through our environment. And most of the things, the reason why we are like our parents, because that's the people who we socialize with. These are the people who teach us how to behave and who to be. And I really like what Dennis Leary said. Racism isn't born, folks, it's taught. I have a 2-year-old son. Know what he lates? Naps. End of the list. So this theory, so I told you about the Charles Darwin theory, where he talks about the the human evolution. That's kind of the gradualism model, kind of evolves like this. I told you this could be considered 6 million years ago when we had our last ancestor with the chimpanzees, and then like the chimpanzees went this way and the humans went this way. I put the example of the butterflies, but it could be any other species. And that's the gradualism model that's the most taught in schools and known worldwide. But Galt, actually another scientist, he believed that species do not change for a very, very long time, and then suddenly something happened, and then they break off like in different species. This punctuate equilibrium model works much better with a scientific creationist theory. No, it's not a theory, it's a scientific creationist idea, because then maybe a supernatural power was the one who split this, that made something happen. So everything stayed the same for a very long time, and then something changed. Not like gradually changed. we'll talk about it. I will share this video with you. I hope it's gonna blow your mind. It's about camels and fossils and archaeology, and about a lot like interdisciplinary approach, holistic approach. So we kind of share a lot of the information that we shared only in these 2 chapters, and we're gonna talk about it in class. So this is kind of the second part of the chapters where we talk about the predecessors of modern humans. So primates, this is a new term from the 1700s by one of the scientists, the naturalist scientists, who also talked about the human evolution in the 1700s, a century before Charles Darwin. And this is what he believed. This is a primates. This is what's the belief in this field, that the primates, which are humans, gorillas, monkeys, orangutans, all of these are considered to be primates. Humans are also primates along with chimps and monkeys and gorillas. So they evolved about 65 to 70 million years ago, and a monkey ape-like creature from which the human species evolved. A species means that are individuals who look alike, but it's not enough to look alike. That means they can actually mate, they can have sexual intercourse, and then they can create offsprings. Obviously, you can have sexual intercourse with other species, but the most important thing is that you are going to be able to have children out of this relationship. Not a relationship, just intercourse. So that's what a species is. That's how we know we're from the same species. Right now, humans, that's all we only have Homo sapiens. This is the only species that are like us, where we can actually create fertile offsprings. Hominids, who actually are humans who stood on 2 feet, believed to arouse about 6 to 10 million years ago. 6 million years ago, if you remember the last ancestors with our chimpanzees in Africa, in South Africa, actually. And bipedalism just means the ability to walk on 2 legs. Bi, if you remember, bi means 2, by language, bipedalism. So this will be the 4 homos that we're actually going to talk about. We briefly just mentioned Homo florensis. So we're going to talk about Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and Sapiens. You can see here a little bit of their difference in size and also hair, how much hair they had, body hair. And then Homo habilis, habilis means tools. He was the one who actually started using tools, and they were a little bit more advanced, their previous species of homos. And they used to eat ants, and they didn't hunt, they didn't wear clothes, compared to Homo erectus, which means upright. And they were able to start hunting because they kind of took some of this information from Homo habilis. They knew how to make the fire, they were wearing clothes, and presumably that they were able to say some stories. We're going to talk a little bit when we talk about religion. We're going to go back to this. So where it all began when it comes to Homo sapiens, who we are today, we're Homo sapiens sapiens. It's in Ethiopia. This is kind of the birth of humans. That's what's considered. And this is obviously in South Africa. We had where Homos started, but then in East Africa, the Homo sapiens started about 100,000 years ago. The out of Africa theory, this out of Africa theory came to be what they believe 100,000 years ago. Homos start moving to Middle East. 40,000 years ago, we have fossils evidence in Italy, Spain, France, and Romania and Bulgaria. 2010 in Romania, in the South Romania, they found 10,000 bones of what looked like Homo sapiens in their structure. And Neanderthals also they were born here. Neanderthals, interesting enough, if any of us will take DNA, if you're Middle Eastern or European, we'll kind of probably have 2% of Neanderthals in us. If any of you did the DNA, that would be interesting to talk about it. So you can see